Welcome to the Hardcore MBA podcast with your host, Erlend, Bakke.
All right, guys, I am here with Mr. James Altucher, and he is, as you can see, in beautiful New York. I am in rainy London. Just had a crazy sort of thunderstorm hit us, and the funny thing, James, was that I could feel that coming. I could feel like 30 seconds before, I was like, oh, it's going to rain, and then just the skies opened up.
You're like a shaman, like you could sense the weather in advance, which maybe is why you could sense the economic weather with your Never Work Again book, which
Yes.
I've plagiarized repeatedly without giving you any credit at all.
Fantastic. That's what I want. I want people to steal my idea. That's one of the things I talk about in the book is borrow people's ideas.
Yes.
You know? So, James, you are a American entrepreneurial legend, fund manager. You've started lots of companies. You've got best-selling books. You speak all over the world, and you just have a lot of fun, don't you?
I do. Well, it's not that I think life is only about fun, but I think you should structure your life as much as possible so that you don't spend 60 years working, from 6 in the morning till 10 at night, and then suddenly realize, oh, what happened? I'm feeling sick now, and you just never get better and you die.
Yeah. We don't want to be Ivan Illich, the book by Leo Tolstoy, where the guy, he dies screaming into death, regretting his life because all he wanted to do was, be a certain person, but instead he did everything that he thought he had to do, and he regretted his life.
Well, tell me, how do you have fun? What do you do?
Well, recently, actually, this has been sort of the past year. I've been playing a lot more sports. I've been getting into tennis again.
Good.
I played basketball down in the hood here the other day. My feet were swollen afterwards. I had like blisters under my feet after playing basketball, which was fine. And then I went to the park and just threw some American football. Just playing games makes me happy.
Yeah, no, games are great. I yesterday I went to the park here and played chess for a while. I like to do that in the middle of the day. It's so great when in the middle of the day you could do what you want. And it's not a function of wealth, it's a function of choice. Like you could structure your life to have a life like that and still make just as much money or more.
Yeah, so a lot of people listening to this will be like, oh, that's bullshit. When people see my title, Never Work Again, they're like, oh, that's bullshit. But so how have you structured your life so that you have a large amount of freedom around you?
Well, I'm incredibly rich. No, I'm just kidding. No, a lot of it has to do with, there's that whole kind of cliche of having multiple streams of income, but it's sort of true. Like, it's not like all of a sudden you could say, okay, I'm going to have 10 different streams of income. I mean, it started off where I had a full-time job, and then on the side I was doing some consulting, and then doing more consulting, and then doing more consulting. And bit by bit, it starts to turn into a life, and then you could doesn't happen overnight, but eventually you can switch from moving from that full-time job to like, okay, I've got enough streams coming in. I'm not dependent on any one stream for my livelihood. And, hopefully I can keep it all together. But that same fear of hopefully occurs if you just have one job also. If you just have one job, you're taking the big risk that that one job could cut you off. Then you just went from 100% of your income to 0% of your income. If you have multiple things going on, and so for instance, when I say I have multiple things going on, I write, I take some of the proceeds of my writing and I invest. I do some consulting for companies, and that's built up over a decade or more of work. I do some public speaking. I do. I write a newsletter which I sell and monetize. So I have lots of different ways in which I make money. And some years you don't make any money, and you kind of have to build up. So I have streams of income, but also savings. And so sometimes you dip into savings while you build up more streams of income. So it all works together. And then you can live a very wealthy life without having, a huge chunk of wealth in the bank.
So I was listening to your podcast, and you said that you've gone nomad, like digital nomad. Tell us about that.
Well, I decided, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. So I'm just going to tell what I did, and then we could assess whether it's good or bad. I threw out 100% of my belongings, except for this computer, which I'm using, my phone, my iPad, and one or two outfits like this.
Uh-huh.
And everything else, all my furniture, all my clothes, everything in my kitchen. I was renting 2 different apartments, one in upstate New York, one in New York City. Upstate New York is where my children live. I was renting 2 different apartments. I shut down both of those leases. I'm very fortunate because over the years I've helped many people. And I called up some friends and said, hey, do you have any apartments available? Not couch surfing. I don't want to sleep on anyone's couch. But some people travel and they have an apartment that's empty and whatever. So I'm staying in a friend's apartment. It's a very nice apartment. You can see.
And this is New York as well. So you got quite a lot of space there, I see.
No, it's look, when you spend 10, 20 years helping people, hopefully you help them to have nice big apartments. So... And then when they have the opportunity, you get to stay in them. So since this has happened, I've bought no new objects. I've spent no money on rent. I eat out and I spend on that, but that's about it. And of course, I support my 2 children. And but in general, I live an incredibly wealthy life, but my expenses are almost zero. And but it's also a little bit of weird, I've never in my entire life owned nothing. Like, even when you kind of go to college and you think you own nothing, you still own all your books and your clothes and your luggage and maybe some of your furniture, and you have things back at your parents' house. Now for the first time in my life, I own really absolutely nothing. I gave away all my books. I gave away everything. I had, let's see, 3 beds. I gave them all away. I had, watches. I had a diploma. I had all my kitchen stuff. I had 100 bottles of wine. Did
you have a big wine party with the wine? Did you have bring the cheese, I've got the wine?
I don't really drink. I had bought it for a party 10 years ago and never drank it. So, and the people nobody showed up at the party. So I just gave it all away. Okay. And I gave away a couple of TVs, a couple of computers, a nice desktop computer. Again, all my kitchen supplies like food processors, microwave ovens, things like that. I just really wanted nothing, and to start fresh and clean. And it doesn't mean I have no money in the bank. I kept my money in the bank, but I haven't even spent it. Now I'm very much on spending on experiences and not material objects. So everything I do, I make sure is an interesting experience that's worth a story. And what does a story mean? It means something I can learn from. It means something that's fun. It means something I can take away information that will help me in my life. And maybe it means I meet new people where I could develop more streams of income. So as long as I'm expanding my network of friends and connections, that network is a tight safety net, just in case I ever fall again. And I've fallen quite a bit, and I don't want to fall again. And this is part of the way I do it.
I got this email from an ex-girlfriend the other day, and she said, "Oh, I'm tired of making other people rich." And I replied to that. I said, "Well, if you want to make more money, you got to add more value. You got to help more people." A lot of people don't understand that about business. That people that are like yourself that have income streams and money don't understand that you are making this money because you're providing value in the world. So what are some of the steps that people can take to move forwards?
Well, a lot of people say that, I wish I could stop making people rich. No, the key is to make people as rich as possible. Whether it's a whole bunch of people or even one person. For instance, the apartment I'm staying in now, it's a 3,000 square foot penthouse in the middle of New York City. Great. I don't own it. I don't pay rent. I do nothing for it right now. But 12 years ago, I did a friend a favor that, I don't want to say I made him rich because he works hard and every day he works hard and he's incredibly hardworking, but I helped him out a little bit. And because of that, you generate lots of goodwill over time, and the goodwill comes back to you. It doesn't have to come back to you tomorrow. It's not a transaction. You give because you can give. And then if later on you get something back, that's good. For a long time, I never was willing to let people help me. Now I decided, you know what? I have all this pent-up demand of people who want to help me, and it's almost like me giving to them to let them help me. So, because they want to. Nobody wants to be in someone's karmic debt forever. People want to help. So now I'm just saying, okay, I'm accepting it. I'm being more. I'm saying yes to good things, and I'm saying no to bad things. Sometimes people say the key to life is saying no. Sometimes the people say the key to life is saying yes. I think it's really more of a balance. Say yes to good things and say no to bad things.
And so why did you not accept help before? What was going on there?
I think I felt bad. I think I didn't feel like I wanted to owe anybody anything.
Right.
And I think I didn't want to think that I couldn't do it myself. But, look, life is short, and life is all about give and take. We're tribal animals, ultimately. Tribal animals have to help each other in order to live and survive and create the next generation of people, and to teach them how to live and survive and share and so on. So part of accepting help is really learning how to share. Not only do you share your own things, but you allow other people to share their things with you.
On my birthday, which is a while back, I did all these nice things. I went to a nice private members club for dinner and all these things. But on the way home, I took £20, which is basically like $30, and I gave it to a homeless person. And I had a chat with her, and all.
Were you trying to pick her up?
Yeah, I was trying to pick her up. Her and her dog.
Think for dogs.
Yeah, I've got a thing for dogs. It's the dogs.
Homeless women.
Yeah. But what gave me the most pleasure was, giving money, like giving something to somebody that needed it, and that gave me more than all the other things I just gave to myself selfishly. So is that part of your daily ritual to sort of do something for somebody else? Let's talk about these sort of 5 things in Choose Yourself that you do in sort of habits.
Right. So there's 2 important things. One is when you fail, and everybody fails at some point, when you hit some kind of bottom, you want to build up a practice so that you can bounce back quickly. And that's critically important. It doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're healthy, if you're in a relationship, if you're not in a relationship, bad things will happen. Like when I've had money, sometimes the worst things in my life have happened. When I've been, in a relationship, sometimes disasters happen. When I'm not in a relationship or not rich, sometimes disasters happen, or sometimes you're at bottom and you want to say, well, how can I get off of bottom? The other thing is when your things are going well, you want to try as much as possible to live a healthy, high quality of life. And so this is why I don't like self-help books that much. It's because there's all these complicated formulas in self-help books to say, oh, do this, do that, fail forward, fail quickly, blah, blah, blah. But for me, it's just a basic, very basic, almost cliche basic foundation, which is I try to do 4 things every day. I try to improve my physical health. So that means eating well, sleeping well, moving well. I try to improve my emotional health, which means, having more contact with good friends, making good friends, eliminating from my life toxic people. I try to work on what I call mental health, which is really just another word for creativity. I try to be creative every day. Doing this podcast with you is helping my emotional health. We're friends, reaffirming our friendship, and also being creative, creating something that's entertaining. And I try to write down, as part of mental health, I try to write down 10 ideas a day to exercise my creativity and my idea muscle. And then finally, spiritual health, which doesn't mean prayer or meditation. It just means looking around and being grateful. I'm grateful. Here it is noon or 11 a.m. my time, and we get to chat on Skype, and I'm so grateful I can do that. Just those 4 things, trying to improve them every day, that increases my quality of life. It doesn't mean a disaster won't happen tomorrow, but if a disaster happens, I know if I keep doing this, if I just check the box on this every day, I will bounce back quickly.
Yeah, and of course, and when you're doing them on a daily basis, you're using the sort of power of compounding as well. So
yes,
like, you get trained, you get like habitual about it, and I found the same in my life. It's like the sort of habits, like ingraining habits into my life that are positive. And when I started doing it, I kind of found that, oh shit, like if I'm going wait a minute, if I'm going to do all these habits, I won't have any time for any of the negative stuff. That's kind of because what was happening was like now that I had better habits, I started realizing that I didn't have so much time for maybe watching bad TV or etc., etc., etc. So I was now coming to the end of the day going like, oh, I did all these really good things for myself. I feel really good, but what about I don't have time for the bad stuff?
That's funny. Well, it's funny because a couple of weeks ago, a good friend of mine says to me, he works for a PR firm, and he says, my job is okay, but I really want to write a children's book. He says to me, I love illustrating. I have all these ideas for children's book. I really want to write a children's book, but I have no time. And I said, listen, I'll give you an example from a TV show. Do you watch House of Cards? And he said, yeah, I watch House of Cards. And I said, okay, don't. And that's it. Then you save an hour a week at least. You can start writing your children's book. And actually, he has started writing the children's book, and it's brilliant. I love it.
That's some great advice. You got it because you can't buy any more time. Steve Jobs on his deathbed said like time was my most precious resource. Like you can't go out and buy anymore. That's why it's important that we spend our life doing the kind of stuff that we want to do. House of Cards can maybe be relaxing, but it doesn't really add value to the world in a sense.
Right, like people say time is money, but it's not. Time is much more valuable than money. Money is just pieces of paper. Look, like I said, I live a great life, and I haven't even spent any money in the past 2 months, but I've enjoyed my time.
What's your perspective on sort of time speeding up as you go older?
I think we get in a routine. And so when you're in a routine, it's like one of those things when you're just driving a car across country and you're on like a stretch of highway where there's just the same view the whole stretch. The next thing you know, it's an hour later and you don't even remember. You can't even remember, have I been awake for the past hour? Like you don't even remember driving. Yeah. So that's because the view has been the same. But what I try to do every day is change my routine a little bit every day and be creative a little bit every day. Right. And, that slows down time considerably. I would say my time is not sped up at all. My time, in fact, has slowed down because I'm trying to have experiences every day. This Skype interview is part of my experience of the day.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is like trances. So if we're like, because in a day we go through trances, and what you're saying is you're sort of you're trans-ending by ending your trance by doing different habits.
Oh, say that again. You froze a little bit.
So what you're doing, so basically we go through the day and we live in trances, right? So like if every day is the same, it's just a trance, and then it's the weekend.
Yeah. People live the same routine every day. Wake up, coffee, commute to work, go to work, have some meetings, coffee break, lunch break, cigarette break, go home, commute, go to sleep. So try to mix it up a little bit. Even if you have that kind of routine, a friend of mine had that kind of routine, and what he decided to do was, on his commute to work, he decided to write 1 page a day for a novel. 3 years later, because he had to rewrite, he had a best-selling mystery novel come out. And that was just from making use of the time on his work. And again, it's adding a new experience, changing your routine. Find one aspect of your routine to change and benefit from.
That's really, really, I'm really glad you're saying this, because I remember having this conversation with my grandma. She's now 92, and I asked her, like, because if I want to figure out something, like how will it be at the end of my life, I wanted to ask her, like, how has life been? Like, when you look back, how was your life? And she said, was this it? Because she felt it was so fast. And I think she's lived a very sort of habitual life. They're always going to the cabin and always doing this. And so I was a little bit worried about, me coming to the end and going, oh, was this it? So you're saying do creative stuff, be creative with your life.
What did she say? Your 92-year-old mom. We have to listen to the 90-year-olds in our life. I don't know any. What did she say? I need her advice.
Well, basically she said that, it was very fast, and, was this it? Like, was this her life? So maybe she's got some regrets. Maybe she kind of wishes she'd done some more stuff. I don't know.
The experience I usually hear from people in their 90s or their hundreds is that friendship is incredibly important. They spend time with their friends as much as possible, and eating well is important. Right. Because eating, is related to your stress levels. Food is a drug you put inside yourself. So like any drug, you have to see how it affects your hormones, your neurochemicals, your digestion. Yeah. Digestion uses up energy. So how you kind of like use that energy appropriately is very important. So, and then of course there's the whole regrets of the dying. Like I wish I had paid attention to my desires instead of what everyone else told me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even more important than that is, friendship and how you eat and exercise.
I got a question about the digital lifestyles, because we both kind of can go anywhere in the world, still make money, and sort of live the freedom lifestyle, as I call it. How do you do that in terms of community? How do you have a sense of community when you're so free?
Erlend, where are you right now?
London.
I'm in New York City. Man, that's how I do it.
Well, what are the things that I like that you? I think it was you that said it, but you do Skype lunches.
Yeah, like so I have a friend who just lives across town here, AJ Jacobs. I don't know if you know him. He's written a bunch of best-selling books. Yeah. He doesn't like to leave his apartment ever, and I like to sit in my apartment. So sometimes we'll go out and get lunch, bring it back, and have a sandwich. This way we don't have to deal with like waiters. We don't have to deal with waiting. We don't have to like go to some uncomfortable place. And we Skype like this, and we just have lunch and talk and catch each other up. That's a Skype lunch. So I do that as well. But like today, for instance, I'm going to get together with a friend this afternoon. Now, not for a meeting. I usually like I play ping pong just for fun. I'm not great, but there's a ping pong place around the corner. So we're going to meet and play ping pong together. And that's how I meet with my friends. I try to have, let's say you take your kids on vacation. Do you have any kids?
No, I don't actually.
If I take my kids on vacation, if I just did meals with them, it would get boring. You have to do activities. So even with my friends, I don't like to just meet them for coffee or meet them for dinner. I want to have an activity with them. So playing ping pong, playing chess, going to the park, these are activities I can do with my friends, which adds to the experience, slows down time, makes the friendship stronger, or builds greater connection, and gives me something to talk about later. So, and plus I might run into a story. My eye is always looking for a story because I want to be creative every day. I've already told all of my stories in my books and stuff. I want to be creative every day, so I want to learn other people's news stories. So I always keep my eye out for a story as well.
So in terms of stories, let's talk about your podcast. Where do you see podcasting going? We're focusing more and more on YouTube. That's why this is video. If you're listening, then you can go to the YouTube channel and watch it there. What's going on with your podcast? Where do you see it sort of going forwards?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, podcasting is a great way to call up people you want to talk to and say, hey, come on my podcast and let's have a conversation. So I get to really talk to people who are just amazing to me, like, I don't know, everybody from Coolio, the rapper, to Peter Thiel, who was the first investor in Facebook, to Arianna Huffington, to I just had on yesterday or today launched Gary Goldman, who's one of my favorite stand-up comedians. I've always wanted to talk to him, and it's just an excuse to call up and say, hey, come to this studio and let me talk to you for an hour. So, I don't know, there's 250,000 podcasts out there, but, Apple is devoting more attention to it. Other companies are devoting more attention to it. I think it's very exciting, and it's going to replace radio. It's already replaced radio, and we'll see what happens. There's some very good podcasts out there that are worth listening to and learning from. So, it's worthwhile.
And in terms of what are you working on right now? Is there a new Choose Yourself book coming out? Of course, Choose Yourself is still like number one in like multiple categories. It's like, it was 840 before this podcast. That's in the morning, which means basically during the day on Amazon.com. It'll increase. And if you're wondering why I can state the stats, it's because if you go to Amazon, you look at a book and you scroll down, you can see like, ranked so and so on Amazon and like overall this and number one in these categories. So congratulations on that book. It's still $1, I believe.
Yeah. I try to make it as cheap as possible, as cheap as Amazon will let me. They don't let you go lower than 99 cents. And I did Choose Yourself, which is, I think, the best, but I also did the Choose Yourself Stories, Choose Yourself Guide to Wealth, and The Rich Employee. But I have another book coming out, which is maybe related, but I don't want to say it's in the same series, and it's about mentorship. I think it's going to be called Mentors, and it's about why you need a mentor, how to find a mentor, but more importantly, how to learn from everybody you encounter. And then I give like 50 examples of one takeaway that I've learned from so many different people, because you can learn from virtual mentors as well as real mentors as well. And so it's a book about the concept of mentorship and why we need it, but how maybe people think about it in the wrong way. And I also have a children's book coming out. Both will probably be coming out around the same time within the next 2 or 3 months.
Great, great.
And a children's book, I just wanted to do something new. Always try to do things new. And the other thing is, if you go to my Instagram, instagram.com/Altucher, I'm trying to do a good photograph every day. I want to be a better photographer. Because it's one thing to write in language. It's another thing to think in a visual language and maybe have that improve your writing and just think in a different way artistically. So I'm trying to improve that in my life.
And so it sounds to me like you have multiple projects going on at the same time. Is this something that you've always had, or is this something that you're just doing right now?
It's something that I've always had. Whenever I've been stuck in one thing, I've always, like, my brain searches for, like, new things. And I think that's something you can practice, though. I think, if you're in a job, it's just like my friend who was commuting to work who wrote a page a day for a novel. Always try to find those spare pockets of time where you could try something new. We all had things we were passionate about as kids. We can bring them back to life as adults in different ways. Maybe if you enjoyed reading mystery novels when you were a kid, you can now write a mystery novel. Or you could write about mystery novels. You could review mystery novels. You could become a private detective. There's so many different things you can do with the things you were interested in as a kid.
I sometimes feel, because I have three companies, I've got some side projects, always a side project that I'm sort of experimenting with. And I must say there is something within me that makes me feel a little bit guilty about not sort of 100% committing to one path. Because you see some entrepreneurs, they'll have one company and then they'll just surf that wave forever until they surf out that wave, and then there's a new wave, and they look for that, a new trend, and then they surf that, and they're very focused, they're very sort of just, they do that. But I'm like, I have like this and that, and I guess they're all interrelated, but do you ever feel guilty about the one path?
No, because a lot of people write about, you got to focus to succeed. Maybe that's true, but maybe it's not. And I feel like I'm somewhat successful. I'm not like, Donald Trump billionaire presidential candidate, but is he successful? I don't even really know. I can't judge. I feel pretty good about my life. Even when bad things happen, I feel pretty confident I could bounce back. And I've always done multiple things. And I think for me, it's a fun way to learn and to live. And also it increases the possibility of coincidence. So, for instance, a great coincidence, I once read a great book called Never Work Again, and I'm thinking, wow, this is really well written and great. And then a week later, I was at a conference and I met you.
Yeah.
Coincidence or not, I don't know. It's just you make yourself open for coincidences, and that's really pleasurable to have in life. Does that make a life successful? I think a little bit, yeah. So I don't necessarily believe in focus. I like to learn and do many different things.
And that goes back into, be more creative. Be creative every day, etc. Let's end with just two very short questions because I know you need to go. Are you probably playing ping pong lunch? Are you playing ping pong lunch today?
Well, I am doing an 11 a.m. coffee, I have to admit,
okay.
And then a 3:30 ping pong meeting.
Great, sounds awesome. So, question number one: what's the first book that comes into your head when I ask this question? That was very badly articulated, by the way.
Choose Yourself, my book.
Okay. And Entrepreneur...
No, you know why? Because I just love that book. I love it not only because I wrote it, but I wrote it like 3 years ago, and it still holds up. Like, I open it up, and I read it and reread it, and I think, man, I used to be a good writer. That's what I'm feeling down about my writing. But I look it up, and I think that's pretty good. I don't always remember what I wrote, and I enjoy it. I get a lot of pleasure out of the fact that, and people come up to me and tell me, oh, your book meant a lot to me. That feels good. I'm sure that feels good for you when it happens to you.
Absolutely. And what I really like about Choose Yourself is like the four things to focus on. I somehow managed to make them into 5, but I guess I was just being creative.
What's your 5th?
I don't know. I'm just saying that I have lots of habits.
Because I kind of have a 5th in it now that I think about is that I always try to improve 1% a day. Not just do the 4 things, but try to improve 1% a day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's awesome. What entrepreneur comes to your mind when I say entrepreneur?
I don't know. because I think entrepreneur is an overused word. It's like a very Silicon Valley tech word. Like people think of Elon Musk or Mark Cuban or Peter Thiel or whatever. I just met a guy. Here's an example. I was at breakfast and I heard a guy talking. He was showing a waterproof scarf that he had invented, and he was trying to pitch it on the Home Shopping Network, and he was talking to his friend about it. So his friend went to the bathroom, and I went up to him and I said, "Are you an inventor?" And he said, "Yeah, I was going to be a rabbi, but you can't afford your family if you're a rabbi in many cases." And so he said, "I put together this facial cream made out of organic elements, and I sold it in Walgreens and Target and CVS, and then I sold the company." And I said, "Well, did you invent other things after that?" He said, "Yeah." He showed me the waterproof scarf. He showed me a purse with all these extra pockets in it. He showed me something that looked like a clothes hanger, but for women to hang their jewelry. And I said, "Well, why don't they just use a jewelry box?" And he said, "Well, women want to see what jewelry they own at one glance." So here's what was a guy who was just like constantly inventing new little tiny things. I said, "Well, how many of these rainbows, of these waterproof scarves did you sell?" And he said, "I sold 10,000 of them, and now I'm trying to sell more." And so that's an entrepreneur. That's someone who hustles, who invents, who fails a lot, who keeps going. That's an entrepreneur. Not these guys who make some BS company and sell it for $1 billion, but a guy who actually makes things and sells them, and people use them and creates value in people's lives.
We just watched the movie Joy this weekend.
Love it. I love Joy.
Yeah. You know her?
Entrepreneur.
Do you know her?
No. I mean, I love the movie.
Yeah, I love the movie. So the last question is, how can we help you? So if somebody's been watching this video and we want to help you out, how can we help? Of course, share this podcast or this video. But what other things can we do?
Well, because I'm trying to get better at photography, go to my Instagram account, instagram.com/Altucher, and critique my photos. Help me become a better photographer. I just want to improve. We're all going to die, so I don't need any trophies. I just want to improve a little bit every day at what I'm interested in.
Fantastic, James. I am jealous of you being in New York. I miss New York, and
I love London.
Well, you should come over. You can stay here for free.
I will. I was at last when? June or July, something like that.
Oh, yeah, well, let me know when you come, and mi casa su casa.
Excellent.
Okay.
Erlend, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
This podcast is brought to you by MrOutsource.com. Outsourcing to the Philippines done for you. Mr. Outsource is a recruitment company matching busy entrepreneurs with Filipino virtual assistants, so you can have the time to focus on what's important.